Greetings, everyone. CFC USA and the other countries present in this virtual talk. I thank the National Council, led by Brother Tofi Itorian, for giving me this opportunity to speak before you today, to share our CFC story. CFC globally will celebrate this year our 40th year anniversary. It is significant, a milestone. Were it not for this pandemic, many of us would have been there in Luneta, the biggest park in Manila, to join at least 50,000 of our brethren around the world to celebrate and thank the Lord together for the gift that CFC is to us all. Of course, we had to adjust because of this pandemic, but I hope we will have the same love and fervor as we participate in a virtual celebration instead. It is appropriate anytime, but especially on this, our 40th year, that we recall our CFC story and get more grounded on our history, be refreshed about our culture, and pray that God will also give us a glimpse of where He would like to lead us in the future. This is the reason why we are holding this triple topic talk in one today. A real challenge, actually. I believe that to equip us more in our journey, every CFC member should know their roots. But it is not just that. What is more important, and I'd like to emphasize this, what is more important is this: knowing our history will give us a glimpse of how the Lord has been leading us, how He has been guiding our community all these years, how He has even intervened. Hopefully, we will realize that what is important to Him, and we will see some clues on the role He wants us to play in this world. Of course, we will not be able to know everything that happened in the past 40 years in one sitting, but I hope we will be able to share important moments in our history. For this purpose, I will cover our story from the founding of CFC to the establishment of our CFC Vatican office. My wife, Bibilu, and I are privileged to be in CFC for almost 35 years now, starting as ordinary members. But over the years, I have been privileged to be assigned various service positions, starting as household head, eventually becoming member of our global governing body, the International Council, and as executive director and chairman. As many of you might know, and has been mentioned, my current responsibility is as Vatican Relations head based in our Vatican office in Rome. So I've been with CFC in various capacities that have allowed me to see both the individual trees on the ground as well as a helicopter view of the whole forest, as it were. So let us proceed first with our history. It is generally known that CFC was founded in June 1981 in Manila, Philippines, by Ang Ligaya ng Panginoon, or Joy of the Lord, a charismatic community associated with the Sword of the Spirit, based in Ann Arbor, Michigan. What is not generally known are the circumstances surrounding its founding, which early on showed that the founding of CFC was part of God's plan. At the time, LNP's, or Ligaya ng Panginoon's, membership was 80% female. However, it also had a deep sense that it was called to renew families, that God had a plan for the restoration of the world, starting from the basic unit of society, the family. Thus, a new form of evangelization was necessary. Father Herb Snyder, S.J., the overall head of LNP, assigned Brother Vic Gutierrez, another leader, to devise a program for married couples. Vic came up with the holding of an LSS, or Life in the Spirit seminar, in a relaxed and social setting in homes, not in churches, so as not to turn off the men, they say. The plan, however, was not to organize a group that will be called CFC. The plan was to absorb those who take the LSS into the LNP. There was actually a first group of 6 couples who took the LSS and was absorbed in LNP. A second batch was organized. When the second batch of 16 couples finished, they could not be accommodated in LNP, as the weekend retreat for entry to the LNP was not yet scheduled. While waiting, they were given the CLP, the Christian Life Program, a program designed by the Word of God, another covenant community based in Ann Arbor. But at this time, LNP sensed that God had a different plan for the 16 couples. That instead of being absorbed in LNP, they were to become the seed of a new movement for the renewal of families. Brother Vic Gutierrez prayed about it as he attended a meeting in Rome, and even later when he took a side trip to Jerusalem. The discernment became clear. Upon his return to the Philippines, he was led to write the Covenant of Couples for Christ, something that we still have today. So on June 26, 1981, the 16 couples, consisting of the second batch who took the LSS, made their commitment to Couples for Christ. That is why the anniversary of CFC has been set in June of every year. Now, it is significant to note that 1981 was also the year when Pope John Paul II made his first visit to the Philippines. He paid tribute to the faith of the Filipinos and acknowledged their resilience amidst all the challenges that they were facing. He then actually told the Filipino faithful, "What you are also creates an obligation, and it confers upon the nation a specific mission, not only to preserve its Christian heritage, but to bear witness to the values of its Christian culture before the whole world." These words of the Holy Father would prove prophetic. There was a clear enthusiasm and attraction for CFC and for the evangelization program that it was conducting. The membership first spread in Metro Manila. Then it was established in its first province. Guess where? In Bukidnon, in Mindanao. It was also introduced in our first international country. Guess where again? In India, in 1985. While still few in number and present only in one province and one country, our Sister Nina Ponte, may she rest in peace, shared a prophetic voice in 1985. Couples for Christ will win the world for Christ. Wow. A prophecy that is gradually and surely becoming real. CFC spread to all the 81 Philippine provinces and 163 international countries, although now active only in 127. Each of these countries has their own stories to tell of how CFC started. We hope to eventually capture these inspiring stories, starting right here with CFC USA soon. In 1989, CFC leaders laid out a plan for a rapid evangelization in the coming decade of the 1990s. The inspiration came from a statement of Father Antonio Cuoto of Goa, India. Something again awesome. He said, Couples for Christ is the hope of the church and the salvation of the world. The goal was to reach 1 million members by the year 2000. A very ambitious goal indeed, but the strategy was actually quite simple. This will be achieved, and it was mathematically shown to us if all the members will just invite one other couple per year for the next 10 years in the 1990s. Well, as the results prove, this goal was reachable. The doubling of members every year did happen in the 4 years 1992 to 1996. And the 1 million members was finally achieved in 2003, when the total membership reached 1,089,196 persons. Just as when CFC was growing, 1993 saw its first major organizational breakup. CFC then considered an outreach, separated from Ligaya ng Panginoon, its mother community. The separation was traced to a growing difference in the calling of the two communities. Turned out that LNP's calling was to focus on the spiritual formation of its members. It pursued evangelization, but at a slower pace, more in line with its main calling of pastoral formation. On the other hand, CFC's charism was, aside from family renewal, was aggressive evangelization. It also had its own formation program, but not in the same intensity as LNP. Now, this difference became wider, especially as CFC pursued its rapid, massive, and global evangelization. This difference also affected the members of both the LNP and CFC, as many of CFC's leaders were also members of LNP, where they undertook their formation and training. The dual membership was very difficult to sustain. Several dialogues between the leaders of the two groups were held, but to no avail. There was a tug of war in terms of membership. Those concerned had to decide which community to continue to belong to. In the process, relationships were strained and broken. It was only later that we found out that the LNP was actually ready to recognize CFC as a separate community. If this was known to us, the painful process and destroyed relationship could have been avoided. In any case, we have restored a good relationship between LNP and CFC. Both of us now belong to an informal aggregation called Partners in Mission, which collaborate in certain activities. Now, this separation from LNP in 1993 resulted in the formation of the family ministries: Kids for Christ, Youth for Christ, Singles for Christ, Handmaids of the Lord, and a bit later, Servants of the Lord. When we were still part of Ligaya, we could not form these ministries as it would conflict with LNP's equivalent ministries. It will be recalled that when we started, CFC was open only to married couples. It was believed that by renewing and strengthening the parents, we strengthen the entire family. While this is still basically true, we realized that there was need to help the parents and complement their efforts with programs for every member of the family. So, brothers and sisters, with the family ministries, we have become fully a family renewal movement, where there is a program for everyone in the family. As we were approaching the new millennium, the year 2000, we were led beyond just the family. but also to do our part in the renewal of society, to the poor and the marginalized, to the sectors that Pope Francis now calls the peripheries. We were beginning to realize that we cannot just exist in seclusion from the rest of society. We may be doing fine as a family, but we parents, including our children, were actually spending more time away from home in our jobs and schools and peer groups, and thus open to their influence. So we should also do our part in evangelizing these areas too. We established ANCOP, our holistic work with the poor. ANCOP, which originally was an acronym for a network for the Church of the Poor, later became Answering the Cry of the Poor. Gawad Kalinga, or GK, originally was just a project of the youth for the poor, but was aggressively marketed and attracted national and global attention, which eventually overshadowed ANCOP. More of GK a bit later. In addition, one after the other, and as the Spirit led, we established St. Thomas More and Associates, STMA, our socio-political renewal ministry. Tecton Guild, socio-economic renewal. Oiko Society, socio-environmental renewal. G-Care, medical missions. EFI, early child education schools. Co-ops for Christ, our own cooperative. Isaiah 61 verse 1, prisons. Sword of Gideon, which later became Order of St. Michael for military and police renewal. Other social ministries and programs were also established later, such as the Migrants Program and Reform. With these programs, our evangelization became holistic. We might have not been aware of it immediately, but we were actually being blessed to respond to the two greatest commandments together: to love God with all our heart and to love our neighbor as ourselves. These developments led us to change our mission statement to bring glad tidings to the poor. After the separation from LNP, CFC submitted itself to the pastoral care of the Catholic Church, requesting several bishops to be spiritual directors over CFC regional groups. This opened the path towards our Vatican recognition. In a meeting with CFC leaders in 1994, Archbishop Paul Cordes, then Vice President of the Pontifical Council of the Laity, encouraged CFC to directly connect itself with the Catholic hierarchy and to seek international recognition from the Holy See. Now, the process was not that easy. First, CFC had to obtain the recognition of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines, or CBCP. This required the recommendation of the two CBCP commissions, the Commission on Doctrine and Faith and the Commission on the Laity. CBCP granted its recognition of CFC in 1996 as a National Private Association of the Faithful. Such recognition was submitted to the Vatican, and 4 years later, in the year 2000, Vatican granted its recognition to CFC as a private international association of the faithful ad experimentum at first. Now, this recognition was finally made permanent and definitive in 2005. Brothers and sisters, this recognition was first to be granted to an Asian association, CFC. It proved to be of great help to us in many ways, both locally and internationally, especially in the area of evangelization. There are only 122 such Vatican-recognized associations in the world. Now, as earlier mentioned, GK started as a project to look for the best work with the poor by the youth in Barangay Bagong Silang, the biggest squatter and depressed area in Metro Manila. The award for the winner of that contest was called Gawad Kalinga. Gawad meaning award, and Kalinga meaning to care for. Many of the projects were for house repair, but this later evolved into house building. At the start, one house for the poor cost only 30,000 pesos or 600 US dollars. GK acquired national prominence beginning February 2001 when the Singles for Christ International Conference held in Dumaguete City featured a contest for the best home that can be built for 30,000 pesos. We invited President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo to grace the conference. She witnessed the different homes for the poor built only for 30,000 pesos. And right there and then, allotted 30 million from the President's Social Fund for GK to build 1,000 homes in different areas of the country. This was a major push for GK. And GK then conducted a public telethon to raise a counterpart fund to match the President's allocated amount, and thus build another 1,000 homes. This started the ball rolling, and before long, GK became a byword for building homes for the poor. GK's popularity gave impetus for it to launch in 2003 the ambitious project GK 777. I hope some of you still remember that. With a goal to build 700,000 homes in 7,000 communities in 7 years. Unknown to many, however, this project created so much tension within CFC, as GK activities often took priority over evangelization and formation. And ostensibly to attract non-religious donors, GK insisted that CFC not be identified to be behind GK. Even with much hype, this project lagged behind its goal. After 2 years, at the end of 2005, GK was established only in 600 communities. But this was still a commendable accomplishment. What we didn't know, many didn't know, but there was already a brewing storm that was starting to develop. So now we go to the period of our storms. The first storm was with FFL. Although it could be said that the storm was already brewing in the second half of 2006, the first storm really entered into CFC's area of responsibility as what happened here? In February 13, 2007, when in a regular IC meeting, 3 of our top leaders voluntarily resigned from their positions in the CFC IC and GK Board of Trustees. The 4 of us remaining in the IC were shocked by what was happening and tried to see if there was a way to stop it, and in fact even offered possible solutions. But to no avail. The best we could do, which everybody agreed, was to give ourselves 1 week of prayer and discernment before announcing anything to the community, in the hope that there could still be a change of mind. There was no change. So on February 20, our brother Frank Padilla announced these developments to a shocked Mission Corps audience during a scheduled teaching night. On a positive note, however, the four of us remaining in the council led the mission corps in praying over the three exiting, and the three exiting led the mission corps in praying for us who were staying on. There were some tears shed, but overall, the mission corps was peaceful, even with a shocking announcement. The peace was short-lived as soon enough the storm gathered strength. Acrimonious exchange of emails, charges and countercharges, tug-of-war for memberships, efforts to stop the elections in June, etc., flew thick against each other in a group that was supposedly a peaceful spiritual community. Reconciliation dialogues were held, but this was without success. Brother Frank formed his restoration group, held their own assemblies, and eventually announced their separation from Couples for Christ. During this tumultuous time, the word from God that came to us was, "Be still, be still." It was against our inclination. We wanted to fight, in a way, but we followed and obeyed, and we are thankful that we did. One Carmelite sister who was a major help to us and me personally during those very stormy days was Sister Mary Nieri from Zamboanga. She taught us contemplation and the contemplative way. And for this, we are truly grateful to her and to our sister Marie Vidalman. I hope she is listening, who introduced us to Sister Mary. As a final arbiter, the bishops of the CBCP Commission for the Laity called the two parties to a whole-day dialogue. But again, no reconciliation could be reached, even as we clearly stated that we were willing to welcome the group of Brother Frank back to CFC. The significant announcement made in that meeting, without our asking for it, was that both the Vatican and CBCP recognition remained with us in CFC. Praise be to God. The conflict reached the Vatican, especially the issue on the use of the name, since Brother Frank and his group insisted in still using the name CFC, as in CFC FFL, or Couples for Christ Foundation for Family and Life. However, in a letter addressed to us in CFC, Cardinal Stanislaw Rilko, the head of the Pontifical Council for the Laity, clarified that no other organization could use the name CFC. Notwithstanding this, CFC FFL still brought us to the legal arena through the SEC, which decided without our participation that CFC FFL could use the name CFC. We were left with no choice but to appeal that decision to the Court of Appeals, which thankfully overturned the SEC and decided in our favor. But not accepting this decision, CFC FFL brought the case up to the Supreme Court. Fortunately, the Supreme Court upheld the Court of Appeals decision and ruled in our favor. Still, CFC FFL did not honor both the Vatican and the Supreme Court decision. They continued to use CFC FFL. Although we had the option to enforce our position by legal means, we decided to no longer pursue it. We were already vindicated, and we left the matter to the conscience of the members of CFC FFL. Fortunately, brothers and sisters, and we'd like to honor Brother Frank and the other members of FFL, this matter is no longer an issue because CFC FFL recently decided to change its name to Missionary Families of Christ, or MFC. So, CFC FFL no longer exists, nor any other group using CFC in its name. Again, praise God for this. Moving on to our second storm involving Gawad Kalinga. GK actually stayed on with us during the first storm. And we were pleased as they added to the number that stayed with CFC. But more importantly, because we sincerely wanted to continue with our work with the poor. There were several issues that were raised against GK in the way it implemented the work, and essentially because it wanted to hide its identity that it is the work of the poor of CFC, a spiritual community. It even disobeyed directives of the GK board, which was composed predominantly of CFC IC members. CFC leaders tried to work out and resolve these issues, and even asked Ateneo de Manila University President Father Ben Nebres, SJ, and his staff to help, but again, to no avail. After trying for 2 years, we realized that we could not go on with such a situation. If we continuously disagreed on basic directions, we would not be helping the poor that both groups, both CFC and GK, profess to love. So in April 2009, the IC decided to let go of Gawad Kalinga. This meant CFC disengaging from any involvement in the GK board and the whole of its organizational setup. GK could now operate independently from CFC as it was. However, we wanted this transition to be less painful. We continued to respect and allow CFC members who wanted to continue serving in GK. We did not ask them to choose. We also respected GK sites that GK wanted to continue managing and gave them a free hand. We wanted to minimize broken relationships, mindful of our recent experience from the first storm with FFL. We were not always successful, but we tried hard. As mentioned, we continued to continue pursuing our work with the poor, and for this work to flow out of our love for God and consistent with our Catholic character and identity. We went back to our original work with the poor ministry, ANCOP. And after prayer, we chose Our Lady of Banu to be our patroness. Virgin Mary appeared in Banu, Belgium, identifying herself as the Virgin of the Poor. We also had a strategy change. We decided to put education and livelihood as our priority areas rather than homes and communities, although we still build homes to help during calamities. We had assessed that education and livelihood helps our beneficiaries to get out of poverty rather than homes. Now, while still healing from our hurts from the two storms, starting from the first storm, we launched in August 2007 a pastoral congress to be conducted in key areas in the Philippines and other countries, and involving both the CFC leaders and clergy. It was a community-wide global consultation to reflect on the storms, the storm that just happened, to recommend measures to avoid further conflict and discern directions for the community as it confronts challenges moving forward. A dedicated pastoral congress team was formed, which submitted its comprehensive report in December 2007. Among the key achievements of this Congress was formulating an expanded vision statement that enhanced and clarified our vision to be families in the Holy Spirit, renewing the face of the earth. It was also this Congress which recommended the new mission statement of building the church of the home, building the church of the poor. We were ready to move forward in Christ. After an objective assessment, we established that while some areas were hard hit by the storm, overall, there was a minimal effect on the membership. A great majority stayed on with CFC. We continue to be on solid footing for the mission ahead. In many ways, we have emerged stronger from the storm. We implemented a major recommendation of the Pastoral Congress to hold a clergy and lay congress to strengthen our relations with the clergy. We held the first one in June 2008, a tradition that continues to be done every year up to this time. In the area of finance, the previous leadership left the staggering amount of 20 million pesos or 400,000 US dollars in bank debts, a big amount, especially at the time. We decided in the IC to be transparent with this problem to the community and rallied everyone to help resolve the obligation. We launched the one-time, big-time campaign in December 2007. We were amazed by the generosity and enthusiasm of the members globally, over and beyond their tithes. In 7 months, as we celebrated our 27th anniversary in June 2008, we joyfully declared CFC to be debt-free. On another aspect, CFC has always been renting its offices all these years. We have stayed in 4 different locations. We actually looked for a permanent office many times with no success. In this time, the Lord gave us our permanent home. Ironically, in human terms, after we were just reeling from our other storms. God's generosity through our members could not be outdone. It was during a conference of our international leaders that gave this dream of a permanent home a big push as well. It was not in the agenda for that meeting, but spontaneously, one geographic group after another, and gathering a momentum that only the Holy Spirit could lead, the conference became a version of a pledging session. To think that this was just after we concluded our debt-free campaign. We sustained that initiative by launching our Build My House campaign in March 2009. We did not even have a site yet, but in faith, we prepared and got ready for the blessing that the Lord will give us. Our members globally stood up to be counted. Thank you for that. The Lord did not disappoint. In the first half of 2011, as we were preparing for the celebration of our 30th or Pearl anniversary, we transferred to our new and permanent home at number 156 20th Avenue, Cubao, Quezon City. It was again a time to rejoice and thank the goodness of the Lord. In the Mission Corps teaching night in September 2015, came a direction for us to strengthen our core and expand our reach. And this was reinforced in the Leaders' Conference in January 2016. Strengthen the core refers to the focus on, first, the core calling of CFC, which is family renewal. Second, ensure that even as we go on mission, we protect our home front. And third, strengthen the formation of leaders, especially the mission core. Expand the reach, directed first, a renewed thrust for evangelization to include gateway evangelization. Second, to make use of media as a platform for evangelization. And third, to pursue select social development programs, especially Laudato Si on the environment. Gateway evangelization refers to evangelization that does not immediately conduct a CLP, such as conducting an MAR first for non-CFC parishioners, and the character enhancement program of the Order of St. Michael. In traditional media, in addition to Ugnayan, which was our monthly supplement to the CBCP Monitor, the official publication of CBCP, we were led to partner with Philippine Star, a major national newspaper, with IC members taking turns to write a weekly column. I hope Brother Nonoy still remembers that, writing column for Philippine Star. And with Radio Veritas, a Catholic radio station which opened up a program for CFC on a daily basis. In television, we were blessed with a partnership with the biggest network then, ABS-CBN, Channel 2, to air our program, Luma, which featured stories of conversion and transformation of CFC members that inspired many viewers. Luma was, in fact, awarded the Best Religious Program by the Catholic Mass Media Awards. In social media, we produced several online programs. A Holy Week recollection on the seven last words, a 3-part talk show discussing various aspects of the life and mission of CFC, and even a newscast twice a month to update the community of CFC programs and events worldwide. It was short-lived, however, unfortunately. Soon enough, our invitations to Vatican meetings became more frequent. Aside from the annual meeting of all ecclesial movements, which we were always invited, in 2014, we were invited to be an auditor in the Synod of Bishops on the theme Pastoral Challenges to the Family in the context of evangelization. Our brother George and sister Cynthia Campos were, in fact, asked to give a short testimony of their personal life in front of some 200 cardinals and bishops. There's a something. This synod and other meetings that followed became the basis for the papal encyclical Amoris Laetitia. Other meetings where CFC was invited included the Congress on Cooperation and Development in the Pastoral Care of Migrants in 2014, which was attended by our CFC Migrants Program people, and Caritas in Veritate in 2015, where CFC presented ANCO with its Work with the Poor program. Now, in view of these frequent Vatican meetings, we explored the possibility of establishing an office in the Vatican. This would save on plane fares, lodging, and other costs for those attending Vatican meetings. More importantly, this would be a strategic move to be closer to the center of our Catholic faith and be readily available for activities that would be relevant to CFC. The office could also serve as the regional mission center for Europe, and in fact now for both Europe and Africa. For this purpose, we sought an audience with Cardinal Pell, then the cardinal in charge of the Vatican economy, and in such capacity was also in charge of all Vatican assets. We were pleasantly surprised by his quick approval of our request for a Vatican office. It turned out that he was familiar with and pleased with the Couples for Christ group in Australia, his home country. And so, brethren, in February 2016, we were blessed with an office at Via del Cotolengo 19, Interior 8, in Rome, Italy, a Vatican-owned property, which is just a 12-minute walk to St. Peter's Square. The IC designated Brother Nick Borja of Canada as the first Vatican Relations Coordinator. We end this by expressing also our heartfelt gratitude to you, brothers and sisters in CFC USA, for your support to our CFC Vatican office. To God be the glory.